No, I haven't. It's a great opportunity. This is the first time I've done it, so I'm learning. It's a learning thing for me.
Did it give you specific problems for writing for a gamelan ensemble? Problems you've never met before?
Well, yes, because I wasn't entirely familiar with how the gamelan worked. I've heard gamelan orchestras before, but there's certain characteristics and things that I would like to master more, and in the terms of the style of the way that they play. And so it definitely did present a challenge for me because I had to do some research to come as far as I was able to. Actually, I went to the university. I'm friends with Lois Anderson, who plays in the gamelan orchestra at the university, and they invited me in for some of their rehearsals, and she took me around and showed me the instruments and so on, like that. So then I've read, I'm still reading some books about the gamelan also.
You've played percussion also, besides, of course, the reed instruments. Did that help you in composing for this ensemble?
I think it did. It inspired me in a way, because the instrument that I built, I tried a couple, because I was trying to really get the real sound that could match with the orchestra. So that did help me in a way, and of course still working on it, but in terms of the structure I wanted to have for the first written improvisation.
In a way, this is not a normal gamelan ensemble, if I may use that term, because this is a gamelan based on the European chromatic system. Did that give problems, or made it things a lot easier for you to compose?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just different. It did give me like the full spectrum of notes to choose from. I imagine I probably would have had the same problems though, because still getting familiar with the orchestra, it's it's different for me, not having worked with one before. I'm inspired though. Who knows? Maybe I'll really go take some lessons now when I get back home.
So you did enjoy the writing?
Oh yes, I did. Yes.
Maybe something about the title. I'm looking to it. The Bells of 59th Street. Can you explain the title?
Yeah, 59th Street is the area that I grew up in Chicago, on Chicago's South Side. And this piece is a reflection of my growing up in Chicago at that time. The different parts of the piece represent different events that would go on, and I thought hard about, the things that I bring with me from that experience, having grown up there and so on. And, actually, really, I would like to go back now that I've had this experience and, really stretch this piece out even more, in terms of the writing on it. And I'm going to do that when I get back, in case there's an opportunity for another performance of the piece.
About this piece, is there also improvisation involved?
Yes, for the orchestra, there's what I call a scored improvisation, in that the music that they're playing during the improvisation is completely written out. But they have the flexibility of moving the music around because it's placed on 6 individual cards that fit together, so they can be overlapped or played also not in order, and so on and so forth. So and when you get each person in the ensemble working on their own individually, it brings about the possibility for many different possible musical situations to occur, and then everyone is also playing at their own tempo. What I tried to do was bring in the elements of the improvisation that actually exist in an improvisation. And in an improvisation, usually everyone's at their own tempo. They're playing their own individual part, and so on, like that. The only thing that I have for the ensemble is the materials that are actually being played, is what what it is that they're supposed to really play. But the interpretation of that material is left up to each musician.
in the rehearsal I saw you play sax, and you also played on your percussion instrument. Was that an improvised part?
Yes, improvised parts for me. And the ensemble has written, like I say, the scored improvisations. In the second improvisation, the violin and the clarinet actually have violin and clarinet improvisations. In the first part, the first improvisation, the violinist is playing the gong and the clarinetist is playing the drums. They have drum cards for that.
How do you compose? Do you use a computer then?
Well, now that's another thing. This is the first piece I've ever done on the computer, this Bells of 59th Street. And
To get an idea of the sound?
no, just because everything is kind of moving that way, I didn't want to really do it. I like writing with a pencil, but there's some things that the computer can do that can save you some time, and I had to admit that. I mean, if you're doing a large score, you have to rule out every beat and so on and so on and so on and so on so that everything is really lined up and straight and everything. Well, the computer does that for you, and I thought about it, because when I was working on Fallen Heroes, which is a piece for orchestra and baritone singer and alto saxophone, a lot of times you get an idea, but by the time you ruled out the paper, you're further away from the idea than you were when you first thought of it. So, but even with the computer, it has its flaws. I mean, a lot of time is spent waiting on the computer to calculate what has gone down and make the change for you and so on and so forth. But another thing I like about it, too, is that it really does keep a clear file of your music. It's a good tool for that. Oh, definitely. I definitely think that's the case. I mean, in my case, once I started to understand more about music, it opened me up in so many ways, And it's kind of a pulling back to that now. I'm finding that a lot of my audience nowadays is like the young people. Some of my biggest fans in the town where I live are the people that went to school with my daughter, which is very interesting because you got a lot of the young people out there that they're really looking for something. They want to have a music, that identifies with their time, when they're living and so on and so forth. And I've really started to see a coming together of young people at the concerts and so on. Of course, the older people are there too. The people, if I go to Chicago, for instance, I'll see people that were in the audience 30 years ago. So.
But if I'm informed well, for somebody like Ornette Coleman was a big influence on you, and he changed your thinking about music. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? How did his music change your thinking about music, or your thinking about humanity, or whatever you want to call it?
Okay. Well, now it took me a while to get into Ornette's music because when I first heard him, I was in the Army, and I was mostly only interested in more conventional forms of music and more straight ahead music. It wasn't for me until I got out of the Army. And Coltrane came out with that record, Coltrane. It's in the blue record. And I started listening to that and the things that he was doing on that record, how he was developing these improvisations with this modal concept. And I thought, wow, now this is something you can do here. So then I thought I'd better go back and listen to Eric Dolphy after that. And then after Eric, then I went back to listen to Ornette, and it all made sense to me then. The whole picture started to make sense to me. And it sort of like took the chains off me. It took the chains off me because I didn't feel that I had to stay only in one area of music. And it just opened my mind up to want to learn more so that I could be able to function in the different musical situations.
And if one can function in a different musical situation, one can function in a different way in society? Or?
Of course, it opens you up. I like interaction and stuff amongst people and things like that. In Madison, I do a series at this coffee house. I just organize musicians for it, and then of course I do concerts there every now and then myself. But it's just a scene where On Sunday, from 3 to 5, you can go into this coffee shop, and for the price of a cup of coffee, you can hear very interesting music. And this sets the stage for all kinds of different things to happen, because different people come and they start talking and so on and so forth. And
you once said also about improvisational music that it is, in a way, I hope I quote you correctly, that it is music for thinking, for thinkers.
It is. It really is music for thinkers, because I think once you stop thinking, then you're not in control of the music anymore. You have to realize there's a lot to keep track of. You have to keep track of what has happened. And how you fit into that. In different situations, it changes too. I mean, of course, going out there and playing a solo is different from going out there and playing with someone else or playing in a larger ensemble. There's different things to assess. When you go into a large ensemble, I'll assess the ensemble. I'll see what instruments are there. And then I'll also set like a dynamic range that matches the ensemble. And then you can also set like another set of dynamics that will rise you above the ensemble or put you below it, and so on and so forth. Like, for instance, if the bass is the softest instrument, then the forte will be based on what the bass's forte is in terms of the ensemble itself. And then I'll also assess what are the instruments there and what colors can happen, and so on and so forth. And so it's a lot to keep track of. It's like being a composer, where everybody's a composer. It's like that.
Maybe I should move on now to the second piece that you are going to rehearse this afternoon, but I presume you've already rehearsed it yesterday. It's the string quartet. Can you say something about that piece? To start off, did you write it especially for the Mondrian ensemble, or did you...
It's a special transcription. It was a piece originally written for violin and piano, and this is a transcription for the string quartet. And it was written especially for the Mondrian string quartet.
Can you say something about the piece, your ideas about it?
That piece, too, is also a piece that uses improvisation. It uses the same card format, but for the two violins, the viola, and the cello. And so that piece has a similar improvisation that occurs with the use of those cards. What I've done with these cards is, over the years, I've done several types that cover many different areas of music. For instance, I have some that only address, like for the saxophone, multiphonics, or some that address overtones. Some that address notes and overtones, notes and multiphonics, and so on and so forth. I mean, I've done a lot of experimenting with these cards because a long time ago, when I was teaching a lot of improv classes, I knew it was something that I was trying to pass on to the students, and this has been like really the best way that I can convey that to them, because what it does, it actually gives musicians a longer period to function in the improvisation, which causes them to be more relaxed and more accustomed to all the different things. It helps, like, with listening, so that it takes away the problem of the musicians having to think of what note that is to be played. So it puts them at a better advantage, because they know the note that's going to be played, and they're able to project it in a firm and confident manner. And this is one of the problems, I think, that I've found out, is that sometimes an improvisation may be weak because maybe someone didn't make a good entrance, or someone maybe didn't stay with that phrase till the end. Or maybe someone didn't make a good ending. Perhaps they didn't use dynamics. Perhaps they didn't use any rest, and so on and so forth, like that. So like I said, it developed mostly out of a method to explore improvisation more. To be able to have the time to really explore it and be doing it in a meaningful way.
Does the fact that you work then with classical trained musicians, does that lead to problems concerning improvisation? Because that's not the way they're taught to think.
Yeah, I know, but I think we're on the edge of a breakthrough in music, because you have so many people now that are interested in all different types of music, and it's a good thing because for the composer, it gives the composer a chance to really get in there and use these experimental methods and work them and see how they work and so on and so forth. And it also adds to just the development of the music scene in general in terms of bringing the musicians along. I mean, with the whole idea. I think that once a person has developed themselves to the point of being a good improviser, then they get much better at sorting out material and knowing what materials to use and so on and so forth. So it relates if it's in a situation where you've got a composition and improvisation inside. What I would do would be to try to get my improvisation from those materials that I just played, and this is in the same way that composition is developed. You may take something from the first two measures and later on bring it back, and so on like that.
Is writing for a string quartet, which is of course a very Western instrumentation, is that a totally different thing than writing, for instance, again for the ensemble multiphone?
Yeah, it's a little different, because with what I'm finding is like in these rehearsals is the sound factor and stuff. I'd heard the piece on computer. It's nothing like the real sound factor. What I'm doing is I'm learning how to I'm focusing on really trying to blend with the orchestra and extend different overtones and so on and so forth that are happening. And just I'm using this time to make a list, so to speak, of the different elements that are available, so that I can, perhaps, even develop those even further. I would say they're the same. I agree with you on that, because what I do is I study both, as a parallel, let's say, because sometimes you may have an improvisation that would inspire you to do a composition. And sometimes a composition will inspire you to do an improvisation. What I'm trying to do is just master the skills so that I can do them in a speeded up way. In composition, you always have several choices that you can make. So it should be like that in an improvisation. It should be that way also. What I've found is when the choices start to disappear, something's wrong, in the improvisation. So it's just something that you have to really keep working on to build the vocabulary so that you're able to really do it.
Do you think that, for instance, also improvisation, that it can be learned and taught?
Well, I think it can, but I mean, musicians have to come together and work on it, together. And what it is a development of your compositional skills, is what it really is, and it's something that you develop methods to study, like what I was telling you with these, with the written improvisations and so on and so forth. These kind of methods set the stage for the study environment to begin. So it's kind of at that level. I mean, it's a lot of people that are interested in it now, so which is a really great thing. I think it's probably going to be one of the best periods for this music because, from my estimation, I think it really takes a long time to really learn it, because you really need to know something about all kinds of musics. You really need to know that, and then this helps you so that immediately when you hear something, oh, they did this and that was a quintuplet, and how do I want to address that? Do I want to address it now or later or so on and so forth? Because then you start to keep in contact with the elements that really make music, the counterpoint and the dynamics and so on and so forth like that, expression, and so on.
To round it off, Mr. Mitchell, what can you say? What are your main activities, musical activities, at this moment?
Study, study, study. There's so many things I'm interested in, and now I've got myself interested in all this early music and these early instruments and so on and so forth. So now I'm studying. I'm studying this music, and sometimes I go to the different workshops and so on and so forth. Just there's a lot I would like to learn, so there's nothing for me to do but just study at this point if I expect to get anywhere close to what I would like to accomplish. I mean, and I love it. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it or anything, because I really love doing it, and even more so in this period almost than ever, because of lots of things that I've worked on for a long time, it now maybe seems like maybe, I can actually do this or something, so I don't want to like give that up. I want to just keep working on it now, and each night well, I'm trying to make a difference, because a lot of things that I'm doing now is like when I'm playing, I'm up there searching around and experimenting, and a lot of things that I'm trying to learn now, they take that kind of thing. It takes that kind of thing, the actual on the up there on the real firing line, so to speak, actually doing it, and trying to figure out different ways of doing things, and so on and so forth, like that. So it's when I'm doing it right, that's what I'm really doing.